Battleball HQ, how may I... Where are you? Somewhere? Hello? Oh, hello. You know, I'm really starting to get tired of all this magic stuff, but if it keeps giving me free stuff to review, well, I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at this bad boy. What's up YouTube, I'm J-Rod of BLACKEST. Today we're taking a look at the Daniel Smith Walnut ink. Now what really caught my attention about this ink was that this was made out of walnuts. Now I've never heard of a walnut ink before. I saw this on Amazon. This is actually $9.59 for 2 whole fluid ounces. So I was really intrigued by when I saw it. I thought, you know, it's a good deal. Let's give it a shot, take a look at it. On the side of the packaging you can see right here, we get some information on it. It is an acid-free natural walnut colored drawing ink. Excellent ink for dip pens and or brushes. So pretty interesting right there. And it says here that it has a natural walnut color, so I'm really curious to see how walnut-y this ink really is. The inkwell itself is pretty interesting. It's plastic, which I don't mind because that helps keep costs down, but its shape is pretty interesting. It's really, I guess, meant for you to stick a whole brush in there because, yeah, this entire cap comes off. And then just for a little bit of context, you know, here's a normal inkwell. They tend to have a smaller top so that not a lot of air goes in to help keep the ink from drying too much. So there's a reason why you have a smaller cap. And it's pretty interesting how the logo here actually highlights the fact that this is a normal inkwell shape, but this is abnormal, so I think that's pretty interesting. Either way, I'm really curious to see what kind of ink shade we're going to get. Is it going to be a solid black? Is it solid brown? I'm just really excited to try this out, and you know what's coming next. We're going to test this out in our Batman sketchbook. I don't know if you guys can hear this. I'm going to put this right next to the mic, but after shaking it, this ink was fizzing. Like, just straight up like soda. And it's also leaking. I've had to clean it a few times on the edge. Let's take a look at the cap, because I noticed this ink is way more brown than I thought it would be. When I bought this ink, I was thinking that this ink is going to be black with a slight brown tinge to it. But I think what's actually going to happen is that may not be the case. Now, I think maybe because it's a little watery right here. Honestly, it kind of looks like poop, if I'm being real. If your poop looks like that, go see a doctor. I'm pretty sure that's not healthy. But let's give it a test. Hopefully, this actually is a true black with a slight brown tint. I think that'd be really, really cool to do an illustration with what I have planned. So let's do our first dip. Oh, let's try again. It's brown. I know it's hard to see on camera, but it's brown. Yeah, so that's interesting. That is interesting. I'm not I said it was a walnut color, but again, I was expecting it to be black with a walnut tinge, like a little brown tinge, not just straight up brown. I would say the tone's even. I am noticing, of course, here at the top, it is lighter, and that's just gravity because this paper is at a slight angle because it is a book. So I'm not going to hold that against the ink itself. I think on a flat surface would actually fare better. But yeah, no, it's just straight up brown, which is going to, of course, affect our illustration that I wanted to do today. In fact, we're going to have to do something else. I'm going to have to come up with a plan. So while we're testing it with our quill nib and our brush, I will be coming up with that plan. So let's go ahead and do the quill nib. Now, I haven't commented on how it feels yet. I'm going to do that at the end. But yeah, no, I'm just surprised by the color. You're probably thinking like, hey dude, you're an idiot. You know, it said natural walnut color. But you know what? I heard ink. I thought it would be black. So you know what? Sue me for being wrong and having expectations that are different from yours. All right, let's go ahead and give it a quick test with our brush. Let's wet our brush and then go in. So let's see. Ooh, that is watery. Really is leaning into those poop analogies right now. Okay, so that is, that's interesting. One thing I will say, so first off, this ink is actually pretty smooth. It's not scratchy. The lines are really strong. They're not fading. We are seeing a little bit of discoloring, but again, that's because of the angle, because if you notice, it's light here, dark here. That's the angle. Page is sloping, so I'm not going to hold that against the ink. It worked well with the dip pen and our quill nib. I actually think that was very nice to use. And with our brush, it's smooth. Definitely not the best ink I've used with a brush, but not the worst. I think this ink waterproof. It didn't mention it on the packaging. I'm actually kind of curious to see how this would actually work with an ink wash because we'll just get like watery. Yeah, it's Is it waterproof? Yeah, I think it's waterproof. I think this, yeah, it's waterproof. Okay. This ink is waterproof. You could tell the way that the ink is moving and dispersing. It's just because it's still wet and we rehydrated a little bit so we can get some more movement and tonal differences. If I was to pick a brown ink to use, it probably wouldn't be this. I mean, this wasn't what I was expecting. We're going to have to adjust our actual illustration plans. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to cut just straight to the time-lapse footage because I need to figure out what I'm doing because I still haven't figured it out yet. So let's roll that super time-lapse. Ink in this piece was interesting. Just interesting. And what I mean by that is that there was a lot of firsts for the channel. A little bit behind the scenes, I actually have a pretty decent sized stack of sketches that I'll do. Some of them even range back all the way up to 2 years ago. And the reason I do that is because in my free time, in between editing videos, in between classes, sometimes even on my breaks at work, I will do a full-on detailed sketch. And then I'll save it and pull it for an ink review. Sometimes I actually do a full illustration with a specific ink in mind. This was not that case. I didn't have a single illustration that I think would actually work with this ink, and I didn't want to actually waste those, so I freehanded. And that's the second first for this channel where I completely freehanded. There was no sketch under it, just some vague construction lines that I just worked off of. And yeah, I've never done that before. There was a freedom to it which was really fun, but no safety net was also kind of scary. Either way, I just kept going at it and I knew what I wanted. This idea of multiple dead tentacles or tendrils or honestly roots, what it evolved into, just kind of intertwined together and have this rotting, rooted monster intertwined with itself with multiple faces. I thought that would just be really fun and really cool, so that's what I just kind of went with. I added some faces and I had fun doing it. The third first for the channel was I only used one brush, and that being a cheap Dollar Tree flat brush, because I did like the shapes and the textures I was getting, so I said, you know what, I'm just going to stick with this brush because I think it's really good. And the final first for this channel was, believe it or not, I didn't illustrate this piece on Bristol board, I illustrated it with watercolor paper, so there you go. It helped the page from warping too much, and the texture actually helped grab the ink in a way that normal Bristol board just doesn't do. So overall, this entire process was a lot of firsts. It was very interesting. The fact that you can't get a consistent tone with this ink is a problem. You can't get 100% brown, and overall, I just did not enjoy this inking experience as much as I normally do, and I love inking, so it was just kind of a little frustrating in some areas, but I just kept at it, kept working, and overall, I just did not find myself really falling in love with this ink that I thought I would. And part of that is my expectation. You know, again, I've said it multiple times, but I did expect this ink to be 100% black with a slight brown tint to it, maybe when you shone the light on it, maybe it's just looking at normally, and just having it be completely brown like a color ink really threw me off, so there's that. And I know I could have done a stronger illustration. I'll talk about that a little later on in the video, but I'm just happy with what I got, and I'm happy the process is over. So this is normally where I would say, let's take a look at the piece in all its finished glory, but we're just going to take a look at this piece in all its finishedness, because it's finished, and that's what I'm happy about. And we're done. We're done. I'm not doing any more work. We're done. We're done. If you guys are one of those people that like to skip the time-lapse footage and the commentary, I recommend going back and watching it because, oh boy, you're going to see some interesting things. Now, I probably should have done a more organic, foresty landscape kind of piece with this ink, but I decided not to. I love doing creatures and monsters and people, so that's what I did. I illustrated this kind of cool, dying, decayed collection of roots that I think would be really cool as a monster. Just a collection of roots intertwined with faces on it. And you know what? For what I had to work with, I think it's pretty good. Not good enough to sell for you guys. Personally, this is not at my normal standard quality that I would like to actually have my artwork be to sell for you guys. So instead, it's going to be completely free on the ArtStation account for a $0 digital download. And while you're there, you can also, of course, get other digital downloads of my work for $1. It really does help the channel out, and it's that first link in the description down below. Plus, you guys get an awesome desktop background, and this piece is totally free. So if you want an incentive to check it out, go ahead and do that. What's up, Alex?
Are you in the middle of doing a video?
I may have been.
Oh, okay, never mind. I thought, did you start doing your taxes at all?
That's a little too behind the veil. We're just going to go back over here. Now that we got that fun little intrusion aside, let's actually talk about the ink itself. And let me tell you something, even if I was to adjust my illustration to what I think would work best with this ink, I still would not have enjoyed the process. It is a layering ink. You're not going to get a solid brown. You're not going to get 100% true brown with this ink. You have to layer it, and I personally don't like that. I would have preferred to get 100% right off the bat and then water it down with ink washes. To each their own, and the Higgins does that better where it's a reverse ink wash wash, we have to do layering far better than this one does. I still just do not like how this ink operates. The way that it works is that it is essentially a coloring ink. It's brown. Again, I personally would have preferred a black ink with a brown or kind of coffee caffeine little twist to it, where you get that just little slight coloring with the light. I think that would have been absolutely amazing and add a sense of just extra to your artwork, but here, not so much. So overall, given everything, the price, given how it works with the dip and the brush, and given the fact that it doesn't do those things well, it's just okay. I'm gonna actually rate this on my scale of 1 to 10 a 3. I don't think it's that good. Like, if you need a brown ink in a pinch, I guess this is probably a good option. It's cheap, I can say that. But the fact that you are limited to what you can do with a brush, the fact that you're going to be doing reverse ink washes in the way that you have to layer to that 100% brown, if you're not gonna get that first go, to me hurts that it's really not gonna be able to do what I want to do quickly or even at all, because after layering it several times, I still didn't feel like I got that 100% brown. But that's my opinion, and I love to hear you guys in the comment section down below. Do you guys think this is the greatest Walnut ink ever? And don't worry, we will actually revisit Walnut inks in the future. I can't wait to actually do some other projects with some other inks and see what we can do with that. But as of now, Walnut inks, this one especially gets a 3. Not that good. I do not recommend it. But again, we will be revisiting that, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. Also subscribe to the channel for more art and animation based content, and of course leaving a like on the video also helps. We're doing the whole normal YouTube shabam. And to end it all off, I'm J.Rod of BLACKEST Productions. I draw power in my own soul.